Forget the soaring music, forget the heroic speeches and the slow motion glory. The first thing you hear in a real medieval battle isn't a horn. It's the sound of a man vomiting inside his own helmet, a wet, choked noise that's instantly lost in a rising tide of shouting. The first thing you smell isn't the clean scent of steel, it's the stench of garlic, stale ale, and pure animal terror rolling off thousands of unwashed bodies crammed together. And the first thing you feel isn't courage, it's a violent shove from the man behind you, forcing you forward into a wall of sharpened metal. This isn't a movie, this is the truth. We're about to drag you into the mud and blood of a medieval battlefield, and when we're done, you'll finally know what the number one killer was. And trust me, it's not the sword. A horn blares somewhere in the distance, but it's not for you. It's for the nobles on horseback, far behind the slaughter, who need to know their plan has just become irrelevant. For you, the signal to attack is the immense, terrifying pressure of the men in the ranks behind, a human tide pushing you forward whether you're ready or not. You don't charge. You shuffle, a clumsy, lurching walk over a field that's a minefield of hidden roots and muddy patches. In the first 15 seconds, men are already going down, not from enemy action, but from tripping over their own feet. Nothing says fearsome warrior quite like face planting in the mud before you've even seen the enemy. Everyone is screaming, but it's not a battle cry. It's a primal roar to drown out the hammering of your own heart. Your mouth is dry, your knees feel like water, and the man next to you smells so bad you consider running toward the enemy just for a breath of fresh air. You're locked in a formation, a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of other terrified men. This isn't a line of heroes. It's a dense, sweating, stinking block of humanity about to collide with another one. Quick question for you. Would you rather be in the front rank, the first to die, or the second rank, forced to climb over the bodies of your friends? Then it hits. Not a single clash of steel, but a sickening, grinding impact like two gravel trucks colliding. The force of the enemy shield wall slams into yours, and the sound is a physical blow, a deafening crunch of wood, bone, and screaming. Your arm, locked to your shield, feels like it's been hit by a sledgehammer. Your ears ring. You can't see anything but the shield in front of you, and the terrified eyes of the man trying to kill you over the top of it. He's just as scared as you are. All your training, all the plans, they vanish in a blast of pure chaos. Your world shrinks to a single horrifying goal. Stay on your feet. Because the moment you fall, you're dead. Not from a heroic sword blow, but from the crushing weight of your own allies trampling you into the mud. The ground is no longer grass. It's a slick, churning mess of blood, vomit, and earth. This isn't a duel. It's a violent rugby scrum where the ball is your head. Fighters don't square off one-on-one. They swarm 5 against 1, kicking, stabbing, and gouging at anyone who loses their footing. Knights didn't follow a code of honor here. They followed the I want to go home alive code, which meant stomping on a downed man's throat was just good strategy. The crush of bodies is so intense, you have maybe 6 inches to move your weapon. Forget those epic, swooping sword arcs from the movies. You're jabbing awkwardly, trying to poke an eye or a throat in the tiny gaps between shields. Most killing blows weren't from swords anyway. Battlefield graves show the most common fatal wounds were from downward strikes to the skull, exactly what happens when you're on the ground and someone is standing over you. But you're still standing, for now, lost in the noise and the press of bodies. And from 100 yards away, another kind of killer is just starting its workday. From a hillside overlooking the chaos, an entirely different battle is being fought. This one is cold, mathematical, and terrifyingly silent. Here stand the archers. For them, the scrum below isn't a chaotic brawl, it's a target, a dense, slow-moving block of meat. Their world isn't about screams and steel, it's about the wind, the distance, and the rhythmic burn in their shoulders. An English warbow could have a draw weight of over 150 pounds. Just drawing it once is a feat of strength. These men were trained to do it 10 times a minute. Their skeletons, found centuries later, are physically deformed, with oversized left arms and thickened bones in their shoulders and backs. They were human artillery, shaped by their weapon. The archer doesn't hear your screams. He hears the thwump of 1,000 bowstrings releasing in unison. He hears the terrifying whisper of the arrows slicing through the air, a sound that battle survivors called the devil's hiss. He doesn't see your face. He sees a mass of color and movement. His job isn't to kill you. His job is to rain death on an area the size of a football field until nothing in it is moving anymore. He notches, he draws, he releases. It's a detached, industrial process, and as the sky turns dark with a storm of arrows, the men in the scrum below don't even see it coming. They just feel the rain. A rain of steel that punches through leather, mail, and sometimes even plate. This is the horror of the medieval battlefield. You could die without ever even seeing your killer. But the arrows are just the beginning. The real butchery happens up close, with tools designed not for elegance, but for pure, brutal efficiency. Let's talk about the hardware of hell. The battle axe wasn't a fancy, gleaming weapon. It was a wood axe with an attitude. Its advantage was simple physics. You didn't need finesse when you had mass and momentum. A solid hit could shatter a shield, shear through a helmet, or cleave a limb. The bearded axe was even more terrifying, with a long, hooked blade designed not just to chop, but to hook shields and pull them away, or to hook a man's leg and drag him to the ground. But the axe had a fatal flaw. It got stuck. An axe head embedded in a thick shield or a ribcage was a death sentence for its wielder as he struggled to yank it free. So, most soldiers carried spears, cheap, easy to make, and brutally effective. A wall of spears, the infamous schiltron or shield wall, was a walking fortress of sharpened points. Its strength was reach. You could kill a man from 6 feet away, but in the chaos of a broken formation, that reach became a liability. More men were probably accidentally poked in the back by their friends' spears than were stabbed by the enemy. A mace, however, solved a problem that slashing weapons couldn't: plate armor. A mace doesn't cut. It crushes. It was a heavy, flanged piece of metal on a stick, designed to turn the armor you were wearing into a cage of broken bones. It didn't need to break the armor. It just needed to transfer enough kinetic energy to turn your insides into jelly. Swords? They get all the glory, but they were the sidearms, the status symbols. A good sword was as expensive as a car. Only knights and professional men-at-arms could afford them. And they broke. All the time. But the real workhorses of war were the farming tools. Pitchforks, sickles, and flails designed for grain, repurposed for guts. Up to 20% of a peasant army might be armed with something they used in the fields last week. There's no honor in being killed by a shovel, but you're just as dead. And as these crude, brutal weapons started to connect, you learned a horrifying truth. Your armor wasn't meant to make you invincible, it was just meant to make you die slower. That suit of armor you spent a fortune on? It's not a force field, it's a suggestion. Chainmail might stop a sword slash, but against a mace or a warhammer, it just becomes a layer of metal rings that get driven into your flesh, along with the shattered pieces of your own bones. Battlefield surgeons noted that 40% of knights' casualties had broken limbs despite their armor being intact. Your armor was just medieval bubble wrap, good for the first impact, but after that it just made crunchy noises as you broke. The wounds weren't clean. An axe doesn't slice, it tears and shatters. A direct hit from a poleaxe could take an arm clean off, but you wouldn't die from the shock. You'd die in the next 3 minutes as your entire blood volume pumped out into the mud. A mace blow to the chest might not even break the skin, but inside, your ribs would be a bag of broken glass, puncturing your lungs. Even a minor cut from a dirty blade could kill you a week later. For every man who died on the field, 3 more died in the following days from infection. There were no medics. The closest you got was a friend tying a strip of cloth around your leg while you screamed, or maybe pressing a red-hot dagger into your wound to cauterize it. The battlefield surgery tent was a place of horror, run by barber surgeons whose main tool was a saw, and whose main solution was amputation. Their success rate was about 30%. And that was just for the people who made it off the field. The physical damage was one thing, but what happened to your mind in the middle of all this was a different kind of hell. After 10 minutes, your brain starts to break. The sheer sensory overload, the noise, the smell, the constant threat from every direction is too much. First, you lose your bearings. Where am I? Soldiers in the heart of the scrum couldn't tell which way their own lines were. Then, you lose your friends. Is that guy with me? In the mud and blood, everyone looks the same. Uniforms and banners are a joke. You swing at movement and pray it's the right kind. Friendly fire wasn't an accident. It was a statistical certainty. At the Battle of Towton, it's estimated as many as 1 in 10 casualties were from their own side. Then comes the real terror. You're covered in something wet and warm. You glance down. Blood. Everywhere. But is it yours? You don't have time to check. A terrifying moment for thousands of soldiers was the slow, creeping realization that they were feeling lightheaded, only to look down and discover a wound they never felt. As the chaos mounts, your brain performs a desperate act of self-preservation. It shuts down. Your higher cognitive functions, strategy, reason, fear go offline. All that's left is the lizard brain. Muscle memory takes over. You block, you thrust, you kick, you bite. Survivors often had no memory of what they did in the fight. Their bodies just went on autopilot. Psychologists call it battle mind. Time distorts. A minute can feel like an hour can pass in a blur. Your vision narrows to a tiny tunnel. You don't see people anymore. You see shapes. Threats. And as this mental nightmare reaches its peak, for many soldiers, the only sane, logical, and intelligent option left is to run. Forget the heroic last stands. The smartest soldiers in any medieval battle were usually the first to run away. As soon as a line started to buckle, a chain reaction would begin. It was called a rout, and about 40% of battles were decided by which side panicked first. For a peasant soldier, there was no shame in it. They fought by the "I'd rather be drinking ale tonight than feeding crows tomorrow" principle. The graveyard is full of heroes. The tavern is full of runners. Of course, running had its own risks. You could be cut down by your own side for deserting, and trying to run across a muddy field in armor is a great way to have a heart attack. Many knights were captured simply because they were too exhausted to run more than 100 yards. But many tried. They'd play dead, dropping to the ground and hoping no one noticed they were still breathing. They'd hide under carts, in ditches, or, in one famous case, inside the corpse of a dead horse. It's not glorious, but it's survival. And for those who didn't run, for those who were still standing when the last screams faded, what did victory actually look like? Here's what victory really was: silence. The battle doesn't end with a cheer, it ends with a slow, dawning quiet, punctuated by the groans of the wounded. If you're still on your feet, you've won. That's it. No medals, no parades. You just won the world's deadliest game of musical chairs. Your first move isn't to celebrate. It's to lean on your spear, vomit, and check if all your limbs are still attached. The victory cheer isn't "Huzzah!" It's "God, I need a drink." The field instantly becomes a grim marketplace. You don't tend to the wounded first, you loot the dead. Armor, weapons, boots, coin purses, everything is stripped from the bodies, friend and foe alike. A good pair of boots was worth more than a dead man's honor. This wasn't savagery, it was economics. You celebrate by drinking yourself into oblivion, not out of joy, but to try and drown the images seared into your brain. Then comes the hospital tent, a place you pray you don't end up. The air is thick with the smell of blood and boiled wine. The floor is straw, quickly turning red. The surgeon, often a barber with a strong stomach, works with a saw and a prayer. Your odds are 50/50 at best. For days after, the battle follows you. You wake up swinging at ghosts. You see the faces of the men you killed every time you close your eyes. And out on the field, the bodies are left for the wolves and the crows. What Hollywood calls victory was just the beginning of a different, quieter war, one fought against memory, pain, and the horrifying knowledge of what a man is capable of. So, now that you've walked through the mud and the blood, which brutal reality of medieval combat surprised you the most? The sheer chaos, the friendly fire, or the fact that running away was often the smartest move? Let me know in the comments below.